993, and we have so much to talk about this morning, pertinent issues that is affecting the Republic of Kenya, what is happening across the country, why it matters and why it is important for you to be able to understand it and understand the key issues and what exactly can be done by the government about it, the state of the demonstrations that will be coming up on Monday next week and Thursday, as the Azimio leader Raila Odinga has stated, the state of the economy, a bloated government after the chief administrative secretaries were sworn into office yesterday, despite a pending court hearing on that issue. Is that a priority? Those are the discussions that we shall be having this morning. And I'm joined by business leader Reverend Felix Kavoy. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning.
Thank you, Cynthia, for being here on Leadership Show.
Yes, and what a time to talk about these issues, really. 7 months after the general elections last year, and we have demonstrations already taking place.
Yeah.
And Monday will be the second time that we'll be witnessing these mass actions. I mean, Raila Odinga or the Azimio la Umoja coalition generally have been very insistent that they're not backing down. What is the end game really here?
Well, I think in the very outset, the very beginning, what we need to ask ourselves is, what is it about?
Yes.
What is the demonstrations about? And should we, because if you listen to Kenyans, you will realize that now we have two sides. There are those who believe that there is no enough reason for Raila to call for demonstrations.
Okay.
And there are those who feel, now those who are on the side of Raila, they feel now it is the right time to do the demonstrations. So we are coming here to discuss on this television when already we have these two sides.
Yeah.
And for us, what will concern us most is to discuss the details, the reasons behind what we are hearing from these leaders. And as I had started to say, maybe we begin by asking, is there enough reason?
Okay.
Are there enough grounds for Raila to stage demonstrations?
Yeah.
And I think that is where we need to begin our conversation. And I don't know where on your side, whether you have captured the key issues.
Yeah, the pertinent issues why he's
Number one,
demonstrating the high cost of living.
high cost of living.
Yeah. Quite a pertinent issue, that one, yeah.
Another one,
The IBC servers, opening of the servers.
opening of the servers.
Yes.
Okay.
They stop to stop the process of
The IEBC recruitment
Yes.
process.
Yes.
Okay, then now you see it's good now to strike the conversation from there,
Yeah.
because now we cannot talk about it unless we know what is it
What is
about.
it? Yeah.
So number one, high cost of living. We cannot deny that the cost of life is too high, because if you look at the price we are buying petrol, and that one, trickles down. It has a ripple effect. It will affect the commuter services, the cost of transport, and all that. So definitely it will push cost of living up. But why don't we ask ourselves a very important question? Does cost of living just happen?
What essentially is taking place is, they are going by what the Kenya Kwanza had promised. The unga subsidy was, done away with. The government said it would genuinely work on it, and it had blamed the previous administration for the high prices, particularly the unga subsidy. Says the government cannot be able to do that, so it's just going by what the Kenya Kwanza government had promised and what it has failed to do.
No, you see, now we have to be sincere people.
Okay.
And one of the things we lack in our political leaders in this country
Yes.
is we lack sincerity. They are not sincere. And they do things for other reasons other than what we expect them to be doing. Because now, if all the leaders we have are mature people, educated people, learned people, I see lawyers there, I see economists there, they know very well, and that is what I had started to say, that cost of living cannot just happen.
Yeah.
It is a build-up. Exactly. For the unga to come and cost 230 by the time the government of former President Uhuru Kenyatta was exiting, it took time to build up to that. So right-thinking people, right-thinking Kenyans, educated people, well-informed people like our politicians, do you think it is sincere for them to say, bring the unga, the cost of unga down now? Can it really happen even if it is them? So you will find that majority of Kenyans are, okay, deep within their hearts they know it cannot happen.
Yeah.
Because it was a build-up. It took time for unga to cost 230. It will take some time to bring it down.
Okay.
It is the common sense of every well-thinking Kenyan that it will take time. Of course, that one does not discount the efforts that government can make to ease the pressure. And now, to ease the pressure, it means they will have to pull ropes here and here, strings here and there, so that they leverage the cost of life. And that one also takes time.
Yeah, does it really fall back to what Kenyans need to have the truthful conversation during politicking period or campaign period, what we allow our political leaders to say? Does it fall back to that? Because if we had that honest conversation during the campaign season and say, you know what, the manifestos, we've listened to it, but these things will take time. But that wasn't the conversation back then, was it?
No, it wasn't. And will politicians allow that?
Okay.
Nobody wants to play a clean game.
Yeah.
I think that is why somebody in this country said, we have only two tribes in this country.
Yeah, the rich.
Political leadership, not even the rich, political leadership, and the rest of the citizens.
Okay.
So the political class can have their way. They can have the money, have the cars, have everything, big salaries, access to contracts, everything. The rest of us, we are grouped together, lumped together. We are one tribe. And that is why Kenyans, when we begin to look at what politicians are saying, we must consider that the truth of the matter is that our politicians have never been sincere. And when even demonstrations like these ones that are being called, you will find that we are all going out there, throwing stones, doing everything. Maybe only one person is going to benefit. If we can look back to 2017,
Yes.
the same thing, what we are seeing now, happened then.
Okay.
There were demonstrations. People are throwing stones. Then Uhuru invited Raila. They shook hands, what we commonly call the handshake.
Yes.
How many people benefited from it? It is actually within the bracket of the handshake that life became even more unbearable. That tells you the people that were used to demonstrate and make noise, vandalize, they never benefited anything. And our politicians know, as they seem to have studied our psychology. They just come and hype us and they use us, and when we push them to where they want to get, we fall back to our poverty. They continue to swim in their millions. And as I speak right now, that is the state. Unfortunately, that's where we are. So if we are talking about cost of living, even Honorable Raila himself he knows he cannot bring down the cost of hunger now, even if he's given the government.
Yeah.
So one of the main reasons why the demonstrations are being called is bring down the cost of living. It can't happen in a day.
Yes.
It will take time. So are they justified to demonstrate? To me, no. And you know, one of the things that you need to study, you need to look at even the chemistry of the demonstrators.
Yes.
It is not about, it's about what they can get for themselves. That is why you are hearing that supermarkets are being vandalized. I don't know why it is not being said anywhere. And me as a pastor and as a leader,
Yeah.
I know on that day of demonstrations, people were robbed. It be actually carrying stones.
Shops were vandalized.
Yeah, but in the evening at around 6 p.m., holding stones in your hand was like the password to go to your house if you had not reached your house by 7. You had to prove that you are coming from demonstrations. If not so, you would be robbed.
Yes.
And I have had stories of more than 3, 4, 5 people telling me we were all told to pick stones so that we can pass. That, what does that tell you? That tells you that even the demonstrators themselves, they don't have hope in the demonstrations. And they know after the demonstrations,
Yes.
they will get nothing. They will just propel one person into power,
Yes.
or maybe 2 few people,
Yes.
3 people, and they will sink back into their poverty.
Yeah.
That is why they have the feeling like we have to rob, we have to vandalize, because what we will carry home is only what will be ours. Can't you see it, my sister?
Yes, and from a general perspective, really, the demonstrations were for once a week. And then gradually we've now been told it's going to be on Monday and on Thursday. And that is, double. And Raila Odinga says on Monday will be the mother of all demonstrations. From a general point of view, why twice a week? Isn't that going to hurt businesses more, families more, because there are those who will, lack something to put on their table? I mean, why twice a week?
Before we come to the change of landscape of these kind of demonstrations, we dispel the core issues of demonstration, the reasons behind the call for demonstration. So we have seen if they are demonstrating for cost of living,
Yes.
they know it is a build-up and it cannot fall in one day. And Uhuru himself, being the president, tried to do that. And he subsidized using billions. Did you see the unga yourself? Personally, there is a day we drove around. It was on a Sunday. We were coming from church. We visited almost 5 supermarkets. We could not find the 100 shilling unga. I have never seen it myself. And yet we look for it. I said, let me look for this unga. We could not find it. So it can't work. It can't work by subsidizing consumption of food.
Yeah.
It won't take us very far. It's too costly. And so we must bring other factors into play. And the economists will tell us that it will take time. Because if you put a strategy of lowering cost of living, then it is going to take time before it can produce fruit. So it is not sincere for Raila. And it is not sincere for Kalonzo. It is not sincere for all the MPs that are with them to say, drop the cost of living today.
No.
They know it can't happen. So they are playing the hypocrite. I can say that. They can't do that. Number 2, they are talking about open the server.
Privacy service, yeah.
I see, is it called Otiende Amolo?
Yeah.
I see Otiende Amolo there. I see Orengo there. I see even party leader Kalonzo Musyoka there.
Yes.
And all these people are well-informed people when it comes to legal matters. They know very well. Why don't we talk? You know me, I'm a pastor. I will speak like a pastor.
Okay.
Because I don't see why the hypocrisy. You know very well, even if you demonstrate, nobody can open the servers. Or you think they can be opened by anybody? Opening servers is a matter of the courts. Unless it is ordered so, nobody can even order a recount of ballots for Starehe constituency or Kamukunji constituency or even Makadara constituency where we are. So when they say we are demanding, we are demonstrating so that servers can be open, I think they hypocritically know deep within their hearts it can't happen by demonstrations.
But they say, there was a whistleblower who has, relayed information.
Did you see the whistleblower? There was a day the whistleblower was supposed to come at Kamukunji, and the whistleblower never showed up. So whatever they are basing their arguments on, we don't know unless they bring them out to the Kenyan public. So the opening of server is not an issue of demonstration. And hypocritically, they are saying they are demonstrating for it to be open. And yet they know it can happen. All right. Number 3 is what?
The selection process.
The selection process.
Yes.
Maybe that is the only thing that carries a little bit of weight, of which I know they can engage and talk, because the Azimio side as members of parliament, Kenya Kwanza side as members of parliament, there are committees that touch on the matter of legal issues. Yeah, like this one. They can call, they can engage if they want. But I think largely they don't want to use that process. They want to prosecute it. So that leaves me with just one conclusion. The demonstrations that are being called today,
Yes.
they don't hold water. There's no good reason. There are no reasons that hold water or can warrant the demonstrations. And so what I would even urge today, call off the demonstrations.
Yeah.
They are not serving any purpose. And if it is a cost of living we want to go down, let us trust the process and give the government time so that they can fix it. And I think a lot of it is being fixed.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you heard that for the first time we are going to buy oil using Kenya shillings.
Yes.
Do you know what that means? Have you
No
tried to
international market.
have you tried to interrogate and try to know what that really means? It means a lot, because the demand for dollar is going to go down. If the demand for dollar goes down right now, commercial banks, by close of business yesterday, they were even daring to ask for 145 shillings for $1. So why the demand for dollar? If now we can ease the demand for dollar, then it means our shillings will be strengthened because we can trade with it.
Yeah.
And it has such a huge
Impact.
effect
Yeah.
on the economy.
Yes. Before we move on to the change of landscape, on just this new development of 2 demonstrations in a week, there's also one more issue that the Azimio team have also been raising, and that is the selection of members within the executive and within various parastatals within the country. And they say this is a tribalic government or a tribalistic government. And they say there's a lot of nepotism around, picking people from essentially 2 tribes to lead this parastatals or to join the executive. Perhaps what are your reactions to that?
Well, of course we expect fairness. The basis of my argument is always based on doing justice for all. And we expect the government of Kenya Kwanza to be fair to everybody. The moment you become a leader, this is a leadership show.
Yes.
When you become a leader, there are things you leave behind. You stop operating in smallness. And you are not just going for revenge. Those are things that you should have left behind, because now you have become a national leader. Then your focus now should be on national issues.
Yes.
You must grow out of smallness into nationality, and we expect to see that in Kenya Kwanza government. That because our president, His Excellency William Ruto, is now the president of the Republic of Kenya.
Yes.
He should be fair to all. Of course, we should call things as they are. For me, I think he might have tried, because if I can see, and there was a lot of animosity and acrimony between the current president and the Azimio leader.
Yes.
And yet we see Nyanza as cabinet secretaries, as CASs and all that. And he has gone there, he is going there. So I think to have a region that gave Ruto almost 0 votes, yeah? And when I say 0, it's just, an expression.
Yeah.
I don't have the clear numbers, the accurate numbers.
Yeah.
But of course, he got votes there. But they are like 0 because they could not matter. To see the president also giving that region a cabinet secretary slot or slots in the government, I think he is trying. And what we can urge him is let him do more to make sure all his government is all inclusive, and it considered even minority tribes that have not been included before.
All right, so let's talk about the change of landscape. 2 demonstrations a week will hurt businesses, will hurt the county of Nairobi in particular. The Governor Johnson Sakaja says, last week's demonstration, rather this week actually, demonstrations, they were able to just collect half the revenue. Essentially, what means is next week it will be even much more revenue lost due to the demonstrations. Businesses closed, not just small medium enterprises businesses, but also huge businesses. And then he also got a chance to answer the clergy and says, before the clergy can talk to us about dialogue, they also need to talk about electoral injustices. Perhaps quick reactions on that?
And maybe I don't know, I see the indication on the clock. I don't know whether we take the break first and then we come and do that. Okay.
All right, so allow us to take a break, but when we come back, we still have much more to talk about, as well as the state of the economy, a bloated government with 50 chief administrative secretaries sworn in already. What does this mean, particularly on a day when the Salaries and Remunerations Commission has reviewed their salaries and increased it? So that is the discussion that we'll be talking about after the break. Stay with us.
With great love and joy, I specially welcome you to worship with us at Redeemed Gospel Church Buruburu. This is a true family church, a true spiritual home. Redeemed Gospel Church Buruburu is home to exuberant prayers, deep and true worship. A house of prayer that will leave you feeling refreshed. Our first service starts at 7:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. and our second service starts at 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. On Wednesdays, we have our midweek service from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and every Friday from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. we have our night of glory. This is the church you have been looking for. This is the place for your spiritual growth and maturity. See you this Sunday and karibu sana.
You are not a mzee because your age says 60 or 70 or 80.
Yes.
You are mzee because Kalonzo has been around from 1985.
Yes.
Ruto has been around from 1992.
Yes.
They are the same age.
Biggest problem in Kenya right now, if you asked me, is not just, that we have problems, but that we have problems with a more enlightened church that is doing absolutely nothing.
But guess what? I don't know whether she won or not, but she didn't win she's not the governor of Kirinyaga.
Join Reverend Felix Kavoy on the Leadership Challenge show every Friday from 7:30 a.m. Candid, bold, and insightful conversations.
Praise the Lord. This is Pastor Joseph Musajawaza from Unfading Love Ministries. I'm inviting you to join me live on EBN every Wednesday from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. as we get to learn the Word of God on this program known as Victory Through the Word of God. Our church is located in Umoja Inako, just near Oloibon Hotel, next to Delight Junior School. And you can visit us on our website, www.unfadingloveministries.org. I know God will speak to you and change your life and add value to you through the Word of God. The Bible says that God has exalted His Word above all His name. As we go through the Word, victory shall be yours to the glory of God in Jesus' name. God bless you.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with State of the Nation Leadership Challenge show. We've been talking about the demonstrations in the country, the effects of that, whether the issues raised are pertinent and substantiate the reasons why the Azimio la Umoja Coalition Party are conducting demonstrations, 2 of them next week, as well as in just a bit we'll be talking about the CSS and what this essentially means for the executive, which results or equivalents to a bloated government. Now, the change of landscape, you talked about that, and 2 demonstrations in a week. We've seen the effects it has had on the businesses, as well as the response of the Azimio team to the clergy, who have been at the center of calling for a dialogue between these 2 parties. I mean, which way now forward?
Definitely now everybody is in this country is in a state of suspension. It's like a suspense, because we are waiting to see, because now it looks like the demonstrations that were there on Monday paralyzed everything.
Yes, they did.
In the city of Nairobi, and those who dared to, who tried to open businesses, they suffered repercussions, because there appeared to be that the demonstrators were organized in a way that if you try to open shop, they come in and they try to force their way to loot. So you are just forced to close. And exactly that is it. It paralyzed operations in the country. It became so costly. And somebody was saying like we lost 2 billion
in a day.
If we count the cost of those demonstrations, for Raila to come and say he will add a second day, it looks like he really is happy with the results of last demonstration.
Yes.
And is really very, very excited and happy about it. So that is why he can slam a second day. But from my view, and my understanding, I believe they were not justified. The demonstrations were not justified. I still believe Raila should have waited until maybe the second year of Ruto's rule and be able to see whether there's a lot of change that has happened in the leadership. It's premature, it is too early, and this is not the time for him to demonstrate. Nobody will ever count him to be a sincere man when he is calling for demonstrations 6 months into a new government, and he wants things to be forced down when people are arguing that he was in government with Uhuru Kenyatta, and they were calling one another brother for 5 years, and the things continue to get out of hand when they were still in power.
Yes.
If they could not do it, why does he want to force another person to do it? So calling a second day is just to make a bad situation worse. In simple terms,
Yes.
he is trying to aggravate the matters, to make things worse for Kenyans. And I don't know whether he really cares now, because the defiance I see in him, he does not appear to really care much. Whether the country burns, whether businesses ground to a halt, whether I don't think whether he cares what the repercussions will be. And I think for whatever reasons, he does not seem to be happy with he seems to be happy with the negative effects, the repercussions. So he really wants to multiply the pain, multiply the loss, multiply everything. And maybe for once we can stop and ask, what is this anger in him? What is the anger about? And I think I saw in one of the places, I think I saw the deputy party chairman of Azimio, he was quoted saying something that Monday of last demonstration. And he said it was for us to lose as Azimio, because we had all the support we needed. We had the government on our side. We had everything that we needed, and yet we lost. And that was Joe. I don't know whether you read anything about it. Did you read it somewhere? Yeah, they said sincerely we lost. So if Raila sincerely lost, I'm personally trying to look at it as a personal reaction, venting anger on anything around you, simply because you are angry you lost elections. And unless he can prove otherwise, for now we take it to be that. And for me, I can urge right-thinking Kenyans to ignore and refuse these demonstrations. And if we look at the percentages of the votes that were cast in previous elections, it is true, as much as we can see Raila with huge crowds, it is true that there are also equal crowd that is not supporting what he's doing. And I think Raila and his comrades in this demonstration, they should also consider there is more than 50%, 50 point something, 50 plus 1 percentage of Kenyans who do not support what he's doing. They don't support what he's doing.
And that includes those who didn't vote in the 2022 elections at all.
Yeah, and why did they vote? If you don't vote, we cannot count you if you did not vote. So let's not talk about people who did not vote. Let's talk about the percentages of those who voted. Otherwise, the other one, you cannot know which way they will go. And it will be wrong for somebody to claim that percentage when they did not vote. They did not so it is definitely, because you asked about now being 2 days in a week, is going to be bad.
Yeah, and as we wrap it up on the demonstrations, is dialogue the way forward? Because the clergy are calling on the dialogue.
Yeah.
Other business leaders as well as political leaders are calling for dialogue. Is dialogue the only way forward at this point?
That is very an amazing question, because you see now it appears is a game that people play after they lose. What do I say now? It has been taken in this country for all the history that we know, that if elections were not declared in your favor, then you must make noise, then cause discomfort to the government, then force negotiations, be given something that you can be given. And so I don't know, but I think that appears to be like the order that we have set for our country. If it is bad manners, then it is bad manners that we have encouraged in our country.
Okay, so that is a situation of course that we'll be keeping tabs on to see how it goes about next week, as we await upon the 2 days of demonstrations, that is Monday and Thursday. But aside from that, a very interesting headline on the Standard: Ruto beats court to a bloated government, and the key word there of course is a bloated government after 50 chief administrative secretaries were sworn into office on Thursday, amidst calls by leaders for him to cut on that number, which was initially at about 23, and he has increased it by 27, not to 27, but by 27. If you look at
50.
Yeah, to 50.
Okay.
If you look at their salary, their allowances, the mortgages that they're entitled to, it seems a bit too much, and it seems like this is not just the wrong timing for him to increase this number to 50. But the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, has said, they need all hands on deck for them to deliver their manifesto. But it seems these are just too much hands.
I think we need also to look carefully, because I believe if you are you are a sensible person, you have to be balanced on all sides. Sensible people do not take extreme sides. They don't take sides. They strike a balance. And if there is anything we need to say to the government and of President William Ruto, we need to tell him to be careful, because I think also the demonstrations themselves could be an indicator that people are beginning to get impatient with the government.
Yes.
They are beginning to think like it is taking too long. It is taking too long. We never thought the promises would take this long. And I feel it is up to the government, it's up to the president to come out and assure Kenyans that, and prove and show and spell out. Use the media houses. Use all channels to communicate to Kenyans. Let us know what the government is doing. Of course, by all standards, I expect him to be doing something.
Yes.
Not because he's being pushed by demonstration, but I believe he is also a kind of a man that will want to prove that he is worthy his salt and his words can stand.
Yeah.
And I when I look at a few things that he has done since he came into power, I talk about our president.
Yeah.
I think he is a man that wants to prove himself worthy of his talk, and is doing everything. So that is one thing that can give a little bit of hope. But how long?
Yes.
Yes, we know he's somebody who wants to prove that he can help Kenyans, but he must come out and talk to Kenyans and tell them what exactly he is doing. People want to know about even this cost of living.
Yes.
Maybe the silence is the one that is making people to get jittery and go out and begin to demonstrate. So the government also must be careful.
Yes.
Because I feel like they are losing favor with people, and people are getting impatient because they promised much. Of course, we know politics is a game of promises.
Yes.
We know they also promise things that are not realistic during campaigns.
Yes.
But we know he's a man that can help the nation. So I think on his part, communication is not working. And then now, the government needs to begin to be careful. The government needs to begin to be careful in the way it presents itself to Kenyans. Because if the government continues to present themselves to Kenyans as a government that does not care, that is not afraid of the same trends that brought us to where we are as a country, then you see they are sending the wrong message. And one of the things is those 50 CSs.
Yes.
I also saw a post, and it was in some media somewhere, that one CAS is going to hand over his office to 5 new CASs, isn't it?
Yes.
So imagine one is going to hand over to 5, you can see. So the government must appear to be listening, putting their ear to the ground, listening to what the people and what Kenyans are saying, They also must know the heartbeat of Kenyans and concerns for Kenyans. And because of the cost of living, when we see unnecessary posts being given out, then Kenyans would say, after all, they don't care about us.
Yes.
This government is not committed. So the government also, in the way they do their budgets and their allocations and the way they run the government, they should run the government to prove that they are on austerity. They are checking on expenditure. They are checking on budgets so that now they can cushion Kenyans, because if cost of living is so high, why don't we reduce some costs? And some of them are just sitting allowances. Yeah, like I was hearing that they are getting an increase of daily fuel from 18,000 to 22,000. That is very high cost of running a government if every civil servant is going to be given the same amount of money.
Yes, and you've talked about, checking on the spending, the expenditure really.
Yeah.
But then again, if it's not the additional 27 CSs, it's the 802 million shillings for them to purchase cars. I mean, it seems as if they are stepping on the wrong feet day in, day out in terms of spending. And, it really begs the question of what do they need to do? What are the priorities really for them as a government? Is it, refurbishing offices and refurnishing how State House looks like, and the 802 million shillings for them to purchase cars? It falls down to the priorities.
I think when it comes to giving people car loans and house allowances, I think that is not something that you can attribute to one government. Even if it was Raila was president, he would still do the same. And I think when we talk about mortgages, and they don't really worry people so much because it is a loan that you have to pay.
Okay.
So that money eventually will be plowed back to the public coffers. No house will, if it's a loan for a house, within 5 years, and the loans are for 5 years, by the way, it is no wonder you see some of the members of parliament, by the time they are finishing their term, if they are one-term MPs, they go home almost poor because of the house allowance and the car loans. So I think our concern should not go very much on the car loans and the house mortgages. And no, our concern is the cost of living. The money that we know it has been swallowed, it will never return. That is what the government needs to check on, and that is what that must worry every Kenyan.
Yes, and perhaps as we wind up, what are your expectations perhaps in the next 6 months? What would you want to see that has changed? What is the difference that should be witnessed in the next 6 months that perhaps will calm Kenyans down and make them, those who feel they're being impatient, to change their heart and say, okay, he's actually doing something, or the government is doing something. What should be changing within the next 6 months?
First of all, let me say this sincerely from deep within my heart. The next few months, I expect a push and pull. Because if you look at Raila, the people that surround him and the way they talk, and look at the president, right from the deputy president, and the people that surround him and the way they talk. In fact, the Daily Nation,
yes.
you can see those people there are being called hardliners.
Yeah.
So in the next few months, I may expect to see more demonstrations. Of course, everybody is urging Raila to think about Kenyans, think about school-going children, disrupting school for 2 days a week. Children will not go to school on Monday. Children will not go to school on Thursday.
Yes.
I think that is too much on our children. And Raila should consider that. Even the Muslims themselves, they have come and tried to tell him, this is a holy month.
Yes.
Please, first of all, call off demonstration and give us time to pray. It is our holy month of prayer and fasting. And almost every pointer is pointing that Raila should call off the demonstrations. But the people that surround him and the way they talk when you listen to them, Do you see them advising him to stop? So, and on this other side, do you see the president giving in to dialogue just like that? I think I have heard them say they are not going to be coerced. They are not going to be bullied into a negotiation. And so you can see those are two hard stands. And really, for the Kenyans, it's really a sad affair. Ride, yeah. It's a sad affair because they say when two bulls fight, it is the grass that suffers the most. Yeah.
Yes, and so perhaps that is about it, where we want to wrap the conversation this morning. Quite insightful sentiments from the business leader here, Reverend Felix Kavoi. Perhaps, the ending sentiments as we wrap it up, from a clergy point of view as well, the dialogue, which is at the center of it to ensure that the country's economy stabilizes as well. Who is at the center of initiating these talks? Because, the demonstrations play a critical role in the country's political landscape, social landscape, cultural landscape, business landscape. So who should be at the center of, initiating this dialogue?
Definitely church plays the best, because church should be bipartisan, isn't it?
Yeah.
They should not support any side. And so church stands the best chance to bring these two leaders together. But at the same time, you will find that anybody that is trying to bring Raila to a negotiating table with Ruto, and if not the other way around, bringing Ruto to the negotiating table with Raila, because it can be both ways, because one can refuse. So it is one who is being brought to the table. While the other one, of course, the president has indicated that he is willing to talk and negotiate, and they can discuss matters. But we need to know when they go for negotiation, what are they supposed to look for? Because if it is for Raila to have part in the government, even we Kenyans, we should say no. He should not be in government. He should be in the opposition.
Yes.
Is it coming to you as a surprise? He should be in opposition. He will serve well now that he did not win the elections. He will serve well in correcting the government, but at the same time not to destroy the country. Opposition does not mean you destroy the economy with the demonstration. You destroy the country with these demonstrations. So calling the media, I think, is an enough noise, rather than calling people, because now we know the people who will pour out into the streets, we know they are not demonstrators. We all know they are looking for every opportunity to steal. We know they are looters. So why should we go that way?
Yes.
And calling the media and addressing the media as Raila and his team and as the opposition, I think it is enough pressure on the government rather than banning the country. So when the church steps in to negotiate between the president and Raila, then those are some of the things they need to look at. We are not negotiating that you are given a part of the government. No, we are negotiating so that the government can explain why are things like this. If it's about the IEBC recruitment process, they need to look at what is not happening right. What is your concern? What is your concern? And above everything, we need to urge every leader in this country, every Kenyan, to adhere to our constitution. What is outside the constitution, let us not encourage it. And otherwise, if it is not by constitution, then we are breaking the law. We cannot be building the country when we are breaking the law.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So as we wrap it up, I'd love to quickly take a look at your feedback that has been coming in through the Facebook page. John Mutisia says, very impressive. The political class have always practiced impunity without the concerns of the larger Kenyans. Crispus Mwasangu says, it looks like there's a spirit of bitterness and denial in Azimio team, mostly to the leaders. I can also see Teresa Blessed, who says, watching great work, EBN TV. There's also Carol Njeri, who says, tuned in. It's saddening to see what's happening in this country. I pray a will be found for the sake of peace in Kenya. Kenyans are hard pressed already. They really don't need maandamanos. And so, quite insightful conversation. Thank you so much, Reverend Felix Kavoy, for making time for us. Remember, every Friday, same time, from 7:30 a.m. all the way to about 8:45 a.m., we take a look at the state of the nation, the leaders involved, calling to account, and keeping that accountability as well for the leaders to ensure that they're doing the right thing and that our eyes are not closed if at all they are going wrong in any particular point. So thank you so much for making time. It is good to mention that we were to be joined by business leader and strategist David Kamau, but he couldn't make time, but I'm 100% sure next time he will be available. So thank you so much for watching and have a lovely morning.